Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jankyard. I am your host, as always. Oh, let me get the volume down on that. I'm your host, as always. The treatment, whether you like it or not, since I am the only one around. Tonight, I have an exciting special episode, a very special host. Without further ado, the one, the only, the inimitable creator of Ashes Ascendancy, Mr. Nick Conley. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me on the
Yeah,
treatment.
this is very exciting. There
Yeah.
is a lot to cover. But first, I figure the last time we had you on here, I thought it was like 6 months ago, and I decided to look back. It was actually in February of 2024, so it's been more than a year already.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah, and that was with Flora for the community and inclusivity episode.
Good times.
So some might say you've been busy in that year and a bit period. How are you?
Oh man, I'm doing great. This has been a huge project for Ashes, the Ascendancy starter set and getting the Kickstarter going, and it's really just been a awesome payoff to see more energy for the game again, and the campaign is going really well. There's a lot of good hype going with what's going on for the game, and every time something new happens with Ashes, I feel like there's just more and more excitement coming for the game, and the community's growing. It's always been a smaller community, but every time it feels a little bit bigger, whether it was Reborn and then Red Reigns and now Ascendancy. I feel like we keep climbing up the ladder.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a fun ride. I joined during the Reborn era, but just to see the community grow has been really cool, and definitely um, the invention or the creation of the PVE mode has really brought a lot of interest into the game. There's
Mm-hmm.
been a very large uptick in the number of people, even just on the Discord, which, Discord communities tend to be smaller than the community at large. But there's been a lot of people interested in the game. So it's very exciting. I have an absolute ton to ask you tonight. Hopefully, we can get it all in. But I mean, the last time I saw you, or the first time I even saw you in person, was actually at Gen Con this past year in
Yep.
Indianapolis, which was a great time. And I mean, between that and according to the Red Rains release articles, you're also a ska musician, a go-go dancer, an outlaw biker, working on Summoner Wars and Red Rains and Ashes Ascendancy. How do you balance all of that? Like, that's just an immense amount of work for one person.
I like to stay busy. What can I say?
um, so before, because I know people are gonna just mostly be interested in all the Ascendancy stuff since it's new and flashy, but we're not even done with Red Rains. I mean, you are
Mhm.
probably from a development perspective, but we haven't even received the Moon Cove yet. It's starting to get into some people's hands. There's been some reports of the Team
Yeah,
Covenant
I've seen a
deliveries.
couple here and there. Yep.
Yeah. So, but I mean, now that you've finished from a development perspective, I was hoping we could maybe get your feedback on how you think that era or that cycle of Ashes went. What regrets you might have, what your favorite chimera or player deck was that you created. Just tell us about that process.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, Red Rains was it was a really big swing, and I feel like it was a big success. There was a lot of, ambitious things we tried with the types of content we wanted to release. Obviously, adding a new game mode that retrofits into the whole card pool was a really big undertaking. And up until like the day that rule book was finished and out the door, I was doubting it. But oh my goodness, that was a really tough time of development. But I have an excellent playtest team and uh, editing team as well, and I think we really ended up with something great. And I'm really surprised at just how it all came together and somehow works. And there was also plenty of design space to explore with making all the new Chimera. I One thing I really found fun about making the Chimera was like, okay, every expansion pass, like the first one, we added like a unique conjured alteration or conjuration, some kind of like auxiliary card that could really carry a lot of the weight of design for all the aspects. So okay, how do we want these Chimera to work with their special tool that we add? And my favorite one, I still look very fondly back on testing Blight of Neverset. That
Okay.
was one where I really felt like I wanted to go off the rails with some of my design goals with that one. And like, how do we get that feeling of just like total overgrowth and like there's just way too much out there to deal with? And anchoring into those status token abilities as ways to just make it feel like it was blooming and spilling over the place. So that one's my personal favorite. And I gotta give an honorable mention as well to the Siege of Lord's Wall. I
Mm-hmm.
think figuring out how to do the swarm thing and like multiple units attacking at once, that was a new angle for chimeras to be playing with. And there's so much you can do with like a 1/1 unit as design space. So that one felt really robust.
Yeah, I think, well, just from the odd reports that I've seen people commenting, I think that's probably one of people's favorite, just because the swarming aspect of it is so different from
Hmm.
the earlier ones. Frostwild and Corpse of Eros are very much more along the lines of beefy guys and battling the field, and this one really took the whole like swarmy aspect as well
Yeah.
as the multiple attacking, because Blight, like you said, had already been multiple units just trying to keep on top of. So it's very cool. That's exciting, and we still don't know much about the time one, but I'm excited for Moon Cove. There's a lot of, I think the depth, or no, sorry, the drowning mechanic
Yeah.
is really cool. When I started reading those cards, I was like, wow, that's something very thematic, but also a fun challenge. So it's very cool.
Yeah, that was one where I really wanted to capture an emotional feeling of like I cannot let this number get any higher cuz such and such is going to flip, and then because I'm in the deep end it's going to be that much scarier. And I could just lose the game at some point. They're effectively like pending wound tokens in a way. Once you have enough to exceed your remaining life, you lose the game. So it kind of reads like an alternate win condition, but effectively it's like a damage that you'll either take it or you can push it away. So as far as like having the granularity of design, I think that works pretty well and doesn't go too into the weirdness that alternate win conditions sometimes can. But yeah, that's a very fun one. I'm glad people will be receiving that any day now if they haven't. And really, that Sympathy Magic deck that comes with it is full of some all-star units. Like I think that's going to be a really big addition to the competitive pool as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Sympathy Conjurations, they have quite a powerful history with that Salamander monk, and we might have some competition with that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was interesting because all of the other identities, even before Red Reigns, had at least some sort of identity, and Sympathy was always like, it's either the parallel cost that goes with everything, or it's attached to all the other units. It's attached to Sonic Knight. It's attached to the battle series. Like you just find it
Mhm.
splashed everywhere. But other than a few cards, which were I guess you could call them resource trading, like Crescendo, where there's the discard stuff. There wasn't a true identity of it at the time, and so it's
Mhm.
really cool to see what you've brought. I like the Cerulean Diver. I think that's the one I'm most interested in trying out right away, and
Oh yeah.
Fiona's Metamorpher.
Yeah, we got some very cool conjurations out there, and focus becomes a much bigger deal, which adds a kind of a new angle to the game that hasn't been as thoroughly explored as maybe it could be. But yeah, I thought Sympathy was a good fit for making those focus effects be, well, a focus, I guess. Um, you have the Sandstorm Sage that can pseudo focus your books for a while and adds kind of this point of interactivity where it's a unit that can be interacted with by your opponent, but until they do, you can capitalize on those focus effects earlier than you normally would be able to.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the community develops around the primarily the focus 2 effects, which have never, other than abundance and orc doves, have never really shown up all that much.
Mhm.
um, and so that will be really interesting to see if even just that ability to go from 1 to 2 with an ally pushes some of those cards, which is cool.
Yeah, it's really tough to naturally get a focus 2 effect. You're talking about getting all three of a single card from your deck in a game where you have to meditate, discard your cards away as just kind of a natural cost to get the magic that you need. So there's definitely a lot of luck involved in whether or not you discard those cards. But yeah, with alternate ways to get focuses or to recur those ready spells from your discard pile, if that does happen, yeah, there's plenty of ways to get those focuses online, and they can really have some game changing effects now. Like the big hippo that has a focus too that changes 4 dice in your active pool
Yeah.
to a side of your choice. Like that can really just shut down any attempts to spin down your dice and kind of choke you out of resources in the end game. That can be a huge uh, kind of gust of wind for you in the end game to keep the momentum going.
Has it been intentional that each set after Viros has sort of been almost like an answer to the prior set? So Viros had wounds, and then in nature set there's an increase in ping, but there's also sort of the beefiness, which then when Blight came out there was all the reduction in attack, and then Divine sort of again went with the buffs and gave some more options in terms of direct removal with the likes of Paladin, and then Illusion started doing the spin down thing to avoid those power sides being used, and now we've got Sympathy, which is sort of either giving you a defense against the spin down decks or the ability to counter those reactions that an Illusion player might have. Has that been in like an intentional forethought, or is it just sort of the way things evolve naturally?
I think there's some just natural element to that. You complete a set and then you want to start thinking in a new space, and it's easy to, look back to, okay, what was the most recent thing I did? How can I be different from that? Or you see kind of the rumblings in the community of how the meta is adjusting to the new stuff, and that can kind of color my view of like, okay, what should we be looking on changing? But more than anything, I think it just speaks to kind of the natural checks and balance that exist in the dice, uh, like the dice color pie.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That yeah, that there's so many different angles that each of them can take, and I think it's kind of natural for them to kind of balance each other out.
So what does that mean for the Red Rain's time? Any hints as to how that fits in the pie?
Yes. So Red Rain's time. This set is going to be called the End of Our Gaia, and I'm sure we'll announce it sooner or later. But we are working around the clock right now with the Kickstarter, so it'll come up at some point. But this set has a really fun batch of Phoenixborn to work with. Rowan is always one of my favorites. I think he's such a cool character, and you got Jericho as well, who was kind of the start of Reborn. So this is a really nice end cap, I think, to everything that's been done in the game before. And um, what to say about that deck? We have some more status token interactions to
Okay.
appreciate, which time dice power inherently benefits, but there's a lot of other time cards we've released over the years that interact with status tokens. So having more
Mm-hmm.
units that benefit from that is cool. Um, we have more reactions in the form of those like blue box units that can come into play at reaction speed and add a new twist to the tempo of the game. So those are really great, and they're also particularly good for mounting because they come into play kind of off
Oh,
action. So we
yeah.
have the biggest mount ever is going to
Mm.
be coming
Okay.
with this set. So you can look forward to hopping on an elephant and smashing things up.
Ooh, okay. I love to hear that. That's cool. I didn't actually expect Time to have a mount, but that's very exciting. And the elephant is sort of an iconic conjuration from 1.0, as far as I understand. My
That's
limited
right,
history. I
yeah.
have to do an episode actually on the history of Ashes with Matt Bowers, who's the original winner um, of
Oh yeah.
of the tournament. What was it, AshCon or Gen Con at the time? I don't know.
Those would have been a Gen Con.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Matt Bowers won the first big Gen Con tournament after the release of the game, and I can't remember too much of 1.0. It's crazy. This game's been going for 10 years. I can't believe looking back on how much of my life has been influenced by this game.
Yeah, it's one thing for, you know, I extendable card games, non-collectible card games to have met the 10-year mark, but I think it's a step above to also be in development continually and to even be growing after such a period of time. And so that's got to be a huge accolade or source of pride for you.
Yeah, I'm just very honored to be the steward of this game. Isaac passed it off to me, and I just feel like I want to do my best carrying that torch, and it's what I love to do. Couldn't
Yeah.
be happier carrying this one.
Um, there's one question from one of our very diehard solo players in the community, and I know it's come up before. The art on Transmogrify, wolf sprouting wings with tentacles. What's going on? It.
It's kind of supposed to confuse you, I think, the idea of this. You read in like the kind of Eldritch stuff or the Arkham stuff, they talk about like, oh, it was so terrifying you could scarcely describe it. There's always kind of like a layer of confusion that I think is implicit with that type of stuff that Harold's deck is goofing around with. So yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of up for interpretation. And sympathy magic is always about kind of shifting of one thing to another thing, and alterations come in all sorts of different angles. So I just like kind of leaving it open to interpretation for what this spell is capable of doing and how you're applying it to this game.
Okay. Um. All right. So we you heard that your Blight was your favorite Chimera. What now? Like I know you're a big Jessa fan, but if we look at the player decks now across all, even including let's say Mooncoven Time, which we don't know anything about yet, what is your favorite player deck and Phoenix Born combination to date?
Ooh, I really got a soft spot for that ceremonial deck. That
Okay.
one I feel like I put a lot of my own interests into the game, into that deck. And I do really like piloting it with Cole, particularly his final stand card is just so fun to me. And I really like just how heroic of a character that is. And yeah, that's kind of my go-to precon now. I really like that one. And any unit that or any deck that has like a really big unit with a interesting summoning condition, whether it's mounts or the Calamity Golem, that's a big sacrifice. I really like going for those types of plays as opposed to just the, it's the old reliable bread and butter.
Yeah,
You summon them from turn one until the end of time. I like the moments of drama.
that's a good choice. I like the fact that so far, you know, I mean, me and Killer Cactus and Shmeny have sort of done a review or our thoughts on every single set, and obviously it's purely subjective. We're not always going to agree on how good certain cards are, but at the very least, every single set has maintained a consistency where there are a few staples, and there, like there's a few, one or two great cards. There's a few staples that show up in their archetypes, since they were created, and then there's also cards, and I'm talking from a PvP perspective, and there's
Mhm.
also cards that have their same spot in PvE, and that balancing act, I think, is really commendable, because even though it's a small pool of cards compared to another card game, the thing I've loved most about Ashes is that so much is viable. Like, it's got the most viable percentage of the pool, depending on how you want to play or what you want to play, and it's got something for every, Timmy, Johnny, and Spike.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I'm very excited. All right.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
So now this is going to lead into Ascendancy, because I saw one of your comments, which is about you having taken a lot of learning lessons from Red Rains, in order to develop the Dragonborn. When you look back and you reflect, what is your biggest regret or thing that you wish maybe you had done differently with Red Rains?
Great question.
It could be a
And
specific card. It could be the fact that the rule books, had different rules in each
yes.
side.
the the biggest regrets are like some of the most boring, pedantic, nitpicky things you could possibly discuss when concerning yourself with Ashes. Yeah, the rule book was a massive undertaking and just yeah, didn't quite hit the mark on making that as usable for all of the types of players, how they're learning the game or how they're adding this to their known experience. So I'm working very hard on the Ascendancy rule book right now, and luckily I got some more time to make sure that one's going to be perfect. But other things like the timing of when certain things happen, there's some bloated wording out there on cards, like specifically the ultimates when they surge, or I guess I don't think it's officially called surge, but when you add another aspect onto the table, when
Mm-hmm.
that happens at the end of the round, you have to do that later on after aspects replenish, so you're actually getting that +1 aspect onto the table and not adding it and then filling up to full threat anyways.
Right.
That was a consequence of, like, I had designed it a certain way. We started working on the rule book. It made sense to make certain things happen at certain times for like rule book organization, and then not seeing the consequences of shifting things around from like how it was tested. And I'm like, oh wait, this actually doesn't work. So we need to, instead of change the rule book, go change those ultimate cards and how those work. So that's a pretty common mechanic that we were using on the ultimates and stuff like that. So the fact that every ultimate card has to have this weird caveat on it, that's something that I don't particularly like. So That and many more boring little things like that make me pull my hair out behind my desk when I'm working on a rule book and aren't fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's always the minutia. I mean, everyone has an idea, of a product, a toy, a game, whatever something they want to create, and then when you actually put the pen to paper and you start working out all the details, and you're like, oh man, like, it's a lot of work, and it's not the fun
Yeah.
stuff, and you have to go over it dozens of times. So that's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah, totally. The ability to tank that psychic damage of reviewing rule books and considering it against a 500 card pool or whatever is it ain't easy.
Someone said, well, at least you get two rule books for the price of one. It's a superior value. It's a
Oh,
bargain.
what a deal. This
uh,
person plays raptor herders.
all right. Well, I know people are going to be just frothing for Ascendancy news. So let's get right into it. Um, I was watching the Covenant stream when it went live, and you guys hit the goal in about 45 minutes. And when I checked on it last night, we're at about 6 times the goal, which has got to be hugely exciting. How are you feeling about all of this? How's the week been?
It's been an incredible week. I mean, you just see how quickly people flock to the game and show their interest in the game, and not just want the new stuff, but want to get all the old stuff too. And like, there's so much joy and excitement I'm seeing around the game, and that just overwhelms me. And you never know how far your game really reaches, but seeing the number of backers that are out there, it's like, oh man, that's so far above what we had for subscriptions. And it's like, okay, so we really are reaching some new people. It's not just this one-to-one people who are already in the game, and this is just where they have to go to get the next set. So it does feel like it is a growth opportunity for the game, which is always exciting. And the starter set, I really really wanted to emphasize making this just like a definitive entry point for the game and have just a lot of longevity to it. So as far as like product design goes, Ashes has a really weird history with this, and
Mm-hmm.
has gone through some growing pains as we've kind of piecemeal added to the scope of the game. So like it first comes out, it's the master set. You have all the magic types. You got 6 different decks. You can mix and match all of that. And like at that time, that's a very comprehensive starter set, right?
Yeah,
what
for
else could
sure.
you need? And then deluxe expansions come out. Okay, so now there's these other dice here. Okay. Oh man, now those are out of print or harder to get. But can I get this expansion? Well, yes, but you need these dice. And then it's like, okay. And now there's this PvE game mode. And okay, now when you need an expansion to play your expansion to your main box. So like that kind of product bloat just over the years as we've done more and more ambitious things with the game had made it really difficult to communicate like, okay, what is this game? Like, and what really emphasized the importance of this to me was working the booth at conventions, and
Okay.
people come up and they're like, what is Ashes? What is this? And you got to give them the rundown, and it's pretty tough. Like anytime somebody else on staff would get like an Ashes customer, they'd be like, you should talk to Nick, he'll tell you all about it. And it just became so apparent to me, like, if you don't know, you don't know. And it's
Right.
really hard to convey that information concisely and directly. So with the starter set, I was like, this just has to have it all. It's got solo, co-op, PvP, the dice, the rules, and most importantly, future expansions for it will be easy to add directly into it. So the starter set was made in mind also with like how we're planning to expand it, which a lot of people have been asking about. We have it in the FAQ on the Kickstarter, and I've answered a lot of comments about it. But to clarify, because I think it's pretty interesting.
Absolutely, it's very exciting for all of us. So I know the answer, but go for it.
Yeah. So each new expansion for Ascendancy will be reintroducing one of the 7 existing dice types. So, for example, the next set will be Natural Magic, everybody's favorite. So the set will have 10 natural dice in it, and it'll have 2 player decks. One will be an Artifice Natural, one will be an Astral Natural.
Yeah.
So you'll have one of each of those decks, and you'll have a new Dragonborn opponent to face. So you just gotta plug that into your starter set, and then you can have totally new content to play with. Versus like in Red Rains, you had that player deck with the 4 different Phoenixborn that you could choose from. That's just like one extra layer of added complexity compared to just like open it, shuffle it up, play it. Like you can just go. So I really, really like making things just comprehensive and straightforward.
Yeah, I remember a very like a multi-day, and this is also just discussion that has popped up many times. Is okay if there's an Ashes 2.0, how is it going to be like most of us thought rebox? Basically, how would you repackage this to make it more friendly? Because any constantly expanding game has to just hit a point where it's so much for any new player to be sort of intimidated to even get into.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there is no elevator pitch, like you said, for Ashes. It's like, well, how do I get started? And it's like, okay, well, are you a PvP player or a PvE player? If you want this, you also need this. And then people were asking, but there's the same Phoenixborn in this set and also this set. Do they have the same thing? And you just end up answering the same question 50 times. So it's really cool. I don't think anyone ever thought, oh, there's going to be 2 new dice types and a brand new, get in 1 pack and you're done. You're good to go. You're good to play. And also it addresses all of the historical players not having to worry about their stuff not being valid anymore. Like it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't eliminate anything from the card pool, and that's just a huge accomplishment. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like Ashes is at a point where any kind of rotation or like meta curation of that level
Yeah.
seems necessary. It's very common for games to hit that point, but that doesn't feel like it's on the radar for Ashes for me.
Yeah, no, it was something in my mind. It was like, well, how do you make a new thing so that new players can get into it and they don't feel like they're missing out, and old players aren't rebuying product that they don't want effectively, right? If
Yeah,
they only
yeah.
wanted this one thing. So that I think that's a great learning lesson that you took away from your whole history in the game so far. What
Mm-hmm.
else have you taken away? Because obviously now we're getting into Dragonborn, which seems like there's similarities from what we can see. We haven't seen a demo yet, but there's also a fairly big departure in terms of what appears to be the design of it with the dice. What did you learn from the Chimera that you're doing differently this time around?
Yeah, so when I started the Chimera, there's just really no baseline to work off of. So to evaluate like, well, is this a strong mechanic? Is this a necessary mechanic? Is this a weaker mechanic? I didn't really have the capability to kind of go over anything and pick and choose like, oh, maybe we could do better with this. It was kind of like, let's get something that works and is fun. And now with Dragonborn, it's time to refine that experience.
Hmm.
And there's so much from Red Rains that I think was really successful. I think the whole kind of behavior and battlefield tempo of things like works out really well and serves as a great baseline for just what makes Ash's gameplay so fun. It feels like it has this unpredictable element and the ability to maybe react or counter certain plays with what it flips up. All of that
Okay.
feels like it's very present. So that's going to stay the same with Dragonborn. It's going to be new aspects, new abilities. all sorts of fun stuff to keep having more opponents to play against and challenge your decks in different ways. All the areas that I wanted to improve were just like, can we streamline anything? And as I was kind of going through the mechanical elements, I was like, it would be kind of nice if those rage dice were more of a parallel to the player's dice. Like the more things can be 1-to-1, the better. It feels like you're interacting with the same things. And rage dice had that thing where it's like, okay, they don't have a class side on them, they're just power and basics, so that's like a little different, but maybe we can use that. And then I'm looking at the behavior chart and I'm like, how much do we really need like all of this granularity? And as I kept designing like chimera after chimera after chimera, you're like, okay, do I really need that? Like the 1 is different from the 2 through 3 versus the. So I was like, what if we just stripped it down to its basics? It can attack, it can flip and do a thing, or it can rush attack you, because that's really like the bones of what the behaviors of PvE enemy are. And I was like, okay, I think that can work. And there's 3 main things it can do. There's 3 sides of a typical die in Ashes. Why don't we just try and use that? And of course, we need the extra splash of things in there. And this is where we kind of synthesize 2 things to improve in the game. Can we simplify the behavior? And can we also add more 1-to-1 game elements so the 2 game modes are as streamlined as possible between each other? So we're adding in ready spells that behave a lot more like a ready spell. It's like, okay, when you roll a class on that dragon die for its behavior, it'll say activate its ready spell. And you're like, okay, that's a ready spell. I could exhaust that with cards instead of. There was kind of some strange parallels in Red Rain. There was like, okay, the ultimate card is a ready spell. If you exhaust that, it adds 1 to its ultimate level, but it'll like fall.
Yeah. It was weird, and it confuses a lot of people. Yeah.
It's weird. And to be totally transparent, I don't even remember how it all works. I always have to read it myself. And if the designer doesn't know how it works, it's too complicated. End of story.
Yeah.
So all of those things, I really tried my best the first time around to like, I want all the cards in the card pool to work. Every effect needs to have some parallel, so you're not like, this card's useless, because your decks are pre-constructed when you're playing in the like traditional game mode for Red Rain. So it's like, I don't want anyone's deck to just have like, well, these cards don't really work, so whatever. So yeah, we're adding in ready spells. The Dragonborn also has an ability, which is a closer parallel to a Phoenixborn having an ability. So it also felt like a good thematic thing where it's like, okay, the chimeras are these big monsters, but now you're going up against a Dragonborn, and you understand these a little bit more because you're a Phoenixborn, so they feel a lot closer to the kind of player avatar that you're used to. So all of that just is some tidying up and simplification of some things that I think will go a long way with teaching it and recognizing it for players learning the game and anyone operating it.
That's very cool. And when I think about even just playing in PvP, there's the most turns, especially in your first round, it's always either play out your books or a unit, right? So it's the reveal aspect, or you're making a swing, or you're meditating and doing like something else. But there's really not a lot in terms of your action space. So to have an opponent now that behaves very similarly, instead of this big like sort of build up and then wipe your board, that's really cool. So then the obvious question is, we've seen the cards, the player cards from the Team Covenant stream. When do we get to see a demo of the solo mode? When do we get to see somebody fighting the Dragonborn Scolari?
I would love to get some footage of that out there before the end of the campaign. I can't make any promises on that. And I also need to, cross-reference with Bistro what kind of marketing stuff and production stuff he has lined up. I can't say for certain what we have going on there, but and also like it's still in development right now, so I'm hesitant to show anything that isn't really final,
Hmm.
just because you plant these seeds of like, oh, it works this way, and then something changes, and you never really quite unlearn it. So
Right.
even the player decks that we had shown on Covenant stream, some of those cards have already changed. So like
You
the
mean the
wipe
reactions
it
that
from
go
your
on the spell
memory.
board are not a thing?
Yeah. You've never seen these cards before. You're going to be so surprised when you open your box.
Obi-Wan, these are not the Dragonborn you're looking for. I mean, the excitement has been very palpable, and people on both the Kickstarter, when I read through the 500 comments as well as our Discord, are really trying to analyze like the every single pixel in the pictures just to get more
Yeah.
information about the Dragonborn and what's happening. Um, so but I do understand the want to actually nail something down, and from our community rule man Skak, who I believe has also been a huge contributor in general for you
Oh, yes.
with the rules. We have faith in him and being able to make sure things are good. Somebody asked if there was any plan to put the rule books out in advance for community feedback before it goes to final printing.
Yeah, as soon as I feel like I have them in the final state and they go through our editors, we'll post them on the campaign. No sense in waiting to do that once it really is final. And if something comes up and people find some stuff, yeah, totally DM me or email me or whatever, let me know. But I'm confident that it's not going to be a problem this time around. And yeah, and I would love for people to read those and be up to speed, so they don't have to go through the rule book on arrival day. They can just hop in and play. So yeah,
Awesome.
those will be up as soon as I'm confident in them.
Okay. Um, the so when we talked a year ago, one of the things I remember asking you was that there's always been these little tidbits of lore, particularly the flavor text on cards. And I know that there's a lot of people who are always interested in the lore. There's a lot of people who want to know more about the Phoenixborn and Argaia. And you had said at the time something along the lines of you liked the sort of ambiguity. You didn't really want to dive into it. But then as the Red Rains release articles went on, some of them in particular were like very detailed, very visceral. And then all of a sudden we got the World of Argaia map, and I know Mr. Bistro has sort of taken on some of that role. Have you changed your mind on bringing more lore into the design or into the future of Ashes?
Yes and no. It's really great having Bistro available to flesh out some of these lore elements, and he was instrumental in getting that map of Argaia put together and out there. And as much as we can do to enhance that side of enjoying the game, I think is great to do. Um, and I do a lot of thinking about my characters when I'm doing art direction, and so I am like building out these characters and world elements in my mind, but not all of that necessarily becomes as forward facing. And I think there is something nice about that kind of ambiguity and filling in the blanks of who these characters are, and details of the story. And there's also only so much I think you can do with like big narrative beats for the characters. Like the whole game is this collection of ashes, and like the slaying of each other permanently to consume their power. And it's like as soon as that like it's canonized in any kind of text, like you kind of lose a little bit of resonance for your in-game play. And I think it's always been a really cool part of Ashes where the lore is really this premise that is set before you, and then you are playing out the action and uh, kind of all the different directions that narrative could go with the character matchups. I think the premise of Ashes being just this uh, very deep tragedy, I think is great, and we always like to play into the tragic elements of Ashes more than anything. I think so. Um,
So
having the go
is
ahead.
that there's no lore compendium, you know, novel coming out anytime in the future that people can make their own RPGs for. It's just going to stay sort of continuing the way it
Yeah,
has been.
I
Okay.
can't promise a book, no. But the map, that can be a very useful role playing uh, supplement,
Mm,
and it's also nice to have a visual of the world if any sets are similar to Red Rains, where it's about these characters grouping up to take on somebody in some location. That map can help out with deciding, like, okay, what do we want the set piece to look like for this battle? Who would it make sense to group up for different reasons? And as we built that world map and revised it, you can kind of see some of that influence in there where it's like, oh, this is where I thought Frostwild Scourge battle was, and like
right.
the Phoenixborn are kind of near that location, stuff like that. So um, it's nice to have that kind of locked down there a little bit.
How involved are you in the art design? Like, do you decide Shepherd of Lost Souls is this barista with the glasses and the sneakers, and then we've got with the artifice die. There's clearly some sort of electricity and technology. Like, do you are you involved in the back and forth, or do you just sort of have a vague idea, you give it to the artist that you work with, and then when they come back with maybe multiple options, you say, yeah, this is where I wanted to go, or this is sort of what I was thinking?
Yeah, I'm fully in charge of art direction and coordinating with all the artists we have for Ashes. So I'm the one putting together the PDFs of, like, here's all the references, here's who this character is, backstory, emotions that I want to convey with such and such piece. So that takes up a surprisingly large chunk of my just daily work, is putting together constant art assets. Like, I mean, every set has, like, I don't know, almost 30 art pieces in it. Like,
Yeah.
that's a ton of work to make the briefs for those, but also check in almost daily with the artists as they're updating you on piece number 1 through 30. Like, it's a lot of coordination and checking in. And I also really want to make sure I'm doing right by uh, the artists, and like giving them assignments that fit their skill sets, creating characters that represent the community that play our games. There's a lot that goes behind, like, trying to make a character, making them feel authentic, not making any kind of missteps. There's a lot that goes into making a character.
For sure. All right. Wow, we're already eating through time. I have so many questions.
Let's keep going. We're good.
So uh, with the print on demand, I mean, this is mind blowing for a lot of reasons. There are people all in the comments on Kickstarter, Team Covenant comments, the Ashes Discord community, that are talking about how groundbreaking this is, because it's not just that you've designed a new set that is a new entry point for players, but now there's also this ability that solves, or this functionality that's going to solve the problem of the backlog, and for people who want more cards of certain decks, or being able to not be restricted to the precons, which especially in the early era, like the master set, are not great. You don't necessarily
Mhm.
want 3 copies of all those cards. Do you see this as industry changing? Like, do you guys think that Plaid Hat and was it Forge Fire? Like, is
Yeah,
this going to be the future? Do you think of the card industry?
I absolutely think it has that potential. It's pretty unexplored territory, so who's really to say? But as far as the goals that I think it can accomplish for a game, especially one of this age, that's another like unique aspect of the game. Of Ashes with this print on demand. It's like not many expandable games have this decade old catalog to manage.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of games that it's just over after year 4, year 5, or whatever, or rotation hits, and they say these cards we're just not gonna support that SKU anymore. So if you have them, good for you. If not, just look for the next thing. So it's really unprecedented territory for what POD can do for supporting a game that's this old and this expansive, really. So, and the reception for it has been way beyond like what I thought it was going to be. Like Jamie Stegmeyer from Stonemaier Games has talked about and written about this Forge Fire technology and how we're using it, and just thinks it's so incredible. And you read all the comments of people being like, "This changes everything. I can just get some decks that I want to play." So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's also like a totally new kind of player base that we can try and reach with the game. So like, you have a player like myself or yourself who has been with the game, has all the stuff. We don't necessarily need that service, but that doesn't mean there couldn't be a whole group of players that they see that news and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I need to try out this game." I was daunted by the fact of having to buy this full catalog to get everything, or if I want to build such and such competitive deck that actually has cards from like 10 different expansions. If you like it, if you want to bring your buddy along to the Gen Con tournament and hook them up with a tournament ready to go deck, it's like you could just print off that one that they want right then and there. And it's not even just printing it off with POD. You could do the print and play files too. Those are viable as well. So uh, the cost to entry and the degree to which you have to dive into the game is lower than ever. So we'll see what kind of an impact that makes. I'm very curious, and I haven't even gotten any numbers yet back of like how many decks have been built, how many have been ordered, or anything like that. So yeah, anxiously awaiting to hear how that goes.
Yeah, I think the the biggest thing for me is that when you talk about building a deck to go to a tournament, and that backlog is a barrier to entry, especially because as more cards come out, you might just want, like I said, one of those staples from this deck or that deck, or you might want a certain number of copies for your buddy, and but you then all of a sudden need more than one set.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of the sets that we had designed in the past, or somebody like Impossible German, one of our great community members, when they built the Adventuring Parting series, it was all with the goal of like, if you have one set, how can we
Mm-hmm.
divide up all the iconic cards so that it's sort of fair and balanced? And now you can
Yeah.
just say, I want this, I want this, I want this, boom. Um,
You gotta like manage triage of like who gets all the nature's wraps and
yeah.
stuff like that.
But there is, I guess, there's one point of confusion that I've seen come up a lot, because what you said in the Kickstarter video was that you could order any amount of cards, any copies of cards that you want, and then the deck building site specifically says that the decks have to be complete and legal to be purchased. Where, like, can you offer any clarification on that? Is it still a work in progress?
Yes. This is all tentative still, but I'll say what I know right now. I probably spoke too early on that particular feature in the video, but what we are toying around with is, yeah, a different kind of build order that you can put together, which is there's a set number of cards that you can fill out your roster with, and obviously that means like adjusting the way the Ashes deck builder website functions, because this was all built off the back of Ashes.live, which
Mhm.
was like a deck builder first. So it has things like the limit 3 of a deck. So now, like, you need new graphical features to like let that number go above 3 if you wanted to order 60 Nature's Wraths or whatever. So um, that tech is still being explored, and we also got to choose, like, okay, what's the right price point for printing out X amount of cards? What is that number that we want to offer? So um, yeah, while it's not available yet, we are exploring that possibility. But
Okay.
yes, for now, it does
So
have to be a viable deck.
so our fans can't get 30 copies of Raptor Herder yet.
Not yet, but you can get
Okay.
3 Raptors Herder, 3 Nature's Wrath, 3 Ice Trap. You can get all those.
Has
Readings
the
right now.
and just because other people might not be reading all the Kickstarter comments and FAQs, just to be clear, it's not just the player cards. It's going to eventually include all of the Chimera aspects, all the Dragonborn cards, the behavior cards as well, or reference cards. Does it include all of those things?
Yep, that's our current plan right now, and the reason being, we just want to have everything accessible for all times, so there's no limited window of like, oh, I guess you can't get Red Rain's decks
Yeah,
anymore. But
right. Okay.
again, it's built off of Ashes.live that has not previously supported Chimera cards yet, or any of those like reference cards. So it's just new tech that we have to
For
build
sure.
the framework for and all that stuff. So
Skak
yes,
was
that'll be a work in progress for the foreseeable future. And there's one more major Forge Fire feature that we're exploring as well, but I won't say any more to
okay.
that yet.
I figure it's definitely, I've done it many times, but it's worth shouting out. The community member Skak, who he created Ashes.live in addition to the original Raven rules, and he's been just a beast of a community member. There's a lot that we
Absolutely.
owe him. I think I have like somewhere between 300 and 500 decks on Ashes.live. So I'm hoping that there's going to be an import feature for the new deck builder. But yeah, I just wanted to shout him out because he's one of the greatest and most
Absolutely.
impactful members.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
okay, I know some of these are going to be mixed in now from the community because I was taking notes last night. Uh, with print and play and the print on demand, have are you going to have an official policy or rules on proxies and print and play for organized play?
Yeah, I believe Colby is on record in one of the videos saying as such or somewhere, but the OP rules will be updated to account for this. But the policy is going to be just opaque sleeves for POD cards, and for print and play, I would just ask that you use the same like backing card for
Right.
all of them, so there's just no chance of oh, I can see you have a Pokemon card behind that one, and the rest are Ashes cards, something like that. So yeah, that'll be codified in the OP rules. But yeah, by all means, like, we're making the POD system so people can play the game. You can play the game with your cards that you get from us. So it doesn't matter which avenue you choose to go with that.
Okay. Um, And so I was going to ask you about tariffs, but I saw just today you guys came out with a post on that. So I'm just going to defer anybody who has questions about the tariffs because I saw dozens, if not hundreds, of those, and it's obviously the talk du
Yeah,
jour. So there's a big article that you came out with, and so all I'll say is I think it's incredible that you guys are being so transparent and in many ways generous with I think how the sort of three steps and the three rules that you've set out, especially for our American players. So that's just great, and I suggest anyone who is watching or who has already pledged to definitely check that out because it impacts everyone and it's really well documented. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been all we've been talking about in the office chat as well, and just how we're going to tackle this. And literally every day the scenario is changing. So with that, the plan also can change. So, but yeah, Colby put together an awesome game plan for that, and really don't miss the first thing that is posted on there, which he says that our production manufacturer,
Mm-hmm.
they are looking to move
Out
out
of
of
China.
China
Yeah.
and use like a different manufacturing site in another country. Like that is brand new news for us. So um obviously, we gotta do a lot to confirm that that is possible. They can manufacture all the different things that we're trying to do with this set. It can all be done at the right quality, and that's like getting it the like white copy proofs of everything in again. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
it's a whole process doing things like that, but is a piece of potentially very uplifting news. We just heard about that, so
That's
we will
no.
see.
Yeah, that's no easy uplift.
Hmm.
And hopefully, it's not the same issue that Apple got into, where they uplifted their production from China to Vietnam, and then Vietnam got equally slapped.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. With every day it's changing. It's hard to say what any news is going to be, which is a huge pain in the butt.
Absolutely. With the deck builder now, taking that in house with print on demand, and sort of the future of Ashes, is do you foresee Errata, FAQ, the rule book, like a living rule book? Do you foresee that going online, either on the side by side with the deck builder, or another website that that's similar, so that you can constantly update it in that fashion without people having to get there another rule book, or with any worries that the rule book might move out of date as things go on?
Yeah, I think now that we have the Ashes DB website as an official link, we can host our information and updated rulebooks, FAQ, OP documents there, which is kind of a bit more of a front-facing place where community members are actively using that site. So it's probably a better place to put the information out there than like on the games page on Plaid Hat Games, which you may or may not frequent for any reason. So I think that's really good. Errata, that's a forbidden word in these parts, but
It doesn't have to be
um,
now.
yeah, and so I have a set of errata planned, and it hasn't been announced yet. I took the opportunity for this campaign, since so many new players are getting into the game, getting products from all across the catalog of Ashes. Like, why don't we just do hopefully one final pass of everything, really sanitize the card database for the big print on demand upload, um, do any little balance changes, get that molten gold off
I
the
was gonna
ban
say,
list, get
molten
rid of
gold
that
coming
ban list.
back. Come on.
Molten gold's coming back. It
Yes.
ain't dumping 3 wound tokens on Phoenixborn anymore. You can count on that. So
All right.
um and that a couple other balance passes that are like, when I did Reborn, I had a limit on the number of cards I could change, but
Mm-hmm.
Errata has been an opportunity to, go back and get a couple of those stragglers. And there's also some cards that, not for balance reasons, but just rules as written were incorrect. Things are incorrect or unintended, and we had to kind of warp the interpretation of cards around that via FAQ. So things like
Void
Void
Pulse.
Pulse. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's been
so
the talk lately. Is this just breaks all the rules?
it does, and it's really annoying to be like, oh yeah, there's a card that you got to read, and it kind of retro applies an effect because yeah. So yeah, like cards like those are getting polished up, and the Errata pack is going to be included, I believe, in the starter set,
That's
which is
awesome.
the product that everybody who plays the game should be interested in. That starter set. It's the new entry point. It's the new thing for existing players. So, and then this is also including all the errata we did in the past with Frostwild Scourge had a few of them there, and then Ramea also got another pass. So those are going to be in there. You're going to get 2 of the Phoenixborn as well, so you can have a Brennan for your Brennan deck and then your Red Rains deck. So I'm just really trying to be as comprehensive as possible with this errata pack, and then nobody gets to say the E word ever again.
I mean, it's got
It's
to be kind
done.
of freeing. It's got to be kind of freeing that you can make these changes because now it's accessible to everyone.
Yes, yes, and um, errata is never easy. It's always a logistics nightmare. So many like little things that you wouldn't think creep up just because it's like changing what is out there and how do you communicate that? How do you get that there? Blah, blah, blah. It's horrible. And even with like print on demand being what it is, I don't even think that is a good enough solve for like, oh, we can just errata like all the time now, no problem. It's like that's still people, they have to go build a deck, buy something they maybe didn't want to, ship it out. Like, it's, I don't think that particularly makes it any easier. And honestly, it's not even as good of a solve as like putting cards in the next expansion so everybody can get those. But even that wasn't like a comprehensive enough solution because I had people who would come home from Gen Con and they're like, we just bought like four boxes of Ashes, and I'm told there's another one I should have got because it has the errata to the cards. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, we'll send you the errata cards or whatever. So it's just never works out smoothly. So this is the smoothest opportunity for us to do it again, and I want to seal that demon away for all time.
That's exciting. Okay, I'm conscious of your time. I have 2 more, maybe like in-depth questions, and then sort of a speed round of some easy
Yeah,
hits.
we're doing fine.
All right. So, um, first of all, with the Astral and Artifice dice, I mean, I don't think anybody expected 2 more magic types, and
Me
it's
either.
that just sort of like we're all of a sudden like, oh wow, this exponentially multiplies the number of combinations and things that will come out. Where do you see them fitting into the color pie, as we like to say in our community? What kind of butts do they kick? Where what's their lane? What's their character? And how do you see them fitting in amongst the rest that are now sort of more developed as an identity?
Great question. Yeah. I was on record saying there's no need to do more dice types. I'm never gonna do more dice types. And then I don't even remember what like shifted that gear in me. But we were talking, I think 2 Gen Cons ago. We had a meet up with the guys from Covenant, and we were just talking what's in the future for Ashes. What are we gonna do? And this was before Ascendancy was thought up of, but um, somewhere in there, I was like, let's just let's just try some new dice types. What else can we think of? And like so rapidly, uh, new ideas were coming to me, and I was like, okay, there's way more I can do with a new dice type. I think than trying to retrofit new ideas into existing dice types. And I think the best place to kind of highlight all that new design space for me is Artifice Magic.
Mm.
When we have a new dice power, you can hook so many things into that dice power without, um, treading existing space or limitations of whatever already exists there. So, particularly with Artifice, what does the dice power do? Nothing.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's so different.
Yeah, like that turns out that actually like unlocks a lot of cool things you can do. The dice power does nothing on its own, but it's all contextual what it goes on to. And that lets us play around with a totally new type of game feel, which is like I really have to manage my system, power up the things that are most important, try and double dip on these things as much as I can. And you compare that to something like divine, which also puts dice on things, but it gives an innate benefit. So
Mm-hmm.
any additional benefit that you want to confer for doing so can only be so high without being too much value. So you have a card like piercing light, which is like, okay, cards with a divine die on them, they get overkill 1. That's a nice like small bonus you can do. But with charge, you can make those benefits a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
And the play space of like, do I need to charge this up? Do I not need to? I think that really gets encapsulated well by the Thunder Hulk unit that I designed, where it's
So cool.
it's two dice for a just giant 3/3, and you have to charge it up to attack with it. But you don't have to attack with it. It can just be this giant tank on defense that can't attack. And there's a lot of strategic implications to designing something just like that. So you're like, wow, like you can't make a 2 die 3/3 anywhere else.
Yeah,
But
no. I
so,
think
and then,
I
yeah.
th- I think it's kind of cool that it's almost like it's a parallel to time magic, where time magic is all about status token synergy and the card interactions between them, and like trying to get a token from here to here. Hopper puts a card down,
Mhm.
you want fighting spirit to make use of this, but this is now with the dice, and so you want to move, I forget what it is, reconfiguration. You want to move some dice around, or you want the
Mhm.
this to have it at the right time so that you can make a swing and then hopefully reuse it somewhere else. And I think that's a really, and also keeping the units alive to actually
Yeah.
make use of them. That's very fun. And then Astral is where do you see that?
Yeah. That well. One last thing on Artifice. You draw a good parallel with the status tokens, and you might see the charge stuff and be like, why not just make this status tokens? But with a new dice power, we get like a totally fresh slate on kind of the economy of okay, what can a charge give you versus what can a status token give you? And status tokens are intentionally, like a generic thing that can be used for all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So this economy on them is like totally different, and like they're all over the place on all different types of cards. Whereas the charges from the astral dice have this new kind of weight to them. They feel like kind of a premium token where you're like, okay, I'm gonna spend to charge this up. And um, yeah, there's a lot more to consider when you're using it as a die versus just like a token that's coming from somewhere.
And then for Astral, there's the protection aspect as far as we've seen, which is really
Yep.
cool. What else do you see revolving around the identity of Astral magic?
So Astral has kind of a synthesizing of several other mechanics that we've seen in other dice types, but not usually all together. So uh, primarily, we have the dice power, which offers you this damage prevention effect, which is one of the fundamental values like on a card that a dice power hasn't interacted with exactly yet. So effectively +1 life, but 1 damage prevent. There hasn't been like a 1 defense type of thing.
Yeah, it's the opposite of nature and divine in some ways.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And being able to put that on your Phoenixborn is another dynamic as well, where being able to gain life off of a dice power effectively is some untreaded territory. So I really like this dice power in the fact that it is state based as well. It's not just heal 1 damage, but it's like while this is on here,
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of dancing where it's like, okay, if if I think you're going to hit me, I'm going to want to get an astral die to prevent that. But when I put the astral die down, you're like, maybe I should focus on something different, make them waste that astral die. Because if I don't hit it, they don't get a bonus from it. It's just chilling there. But then they're like, oh, I have an astral die on me. Here's this extra card that I get to play that does some benefit because I have a die on my guy. So it kind of puts a spotlight on a particular card, and it says like, how are we going to play with this one? And I think that's really fun. And there's kind of two kicker bonuses that I can toy around with in this design space. So since dice powers are placed off of a side action, you can really easily pair that with a main action card. So if your Phoenixborn has an astral die on it, main action, here's a little bonus. It's like, okay, I want to do like a 1-2 combo here. But then you have Aaron's signature card, which is a side action. Your Phoenixborn has to have an astral die on it. Now this is you have to like play this risk reward game. Right, can I stay powered up with my astral die in time to slam dunk you with an aerial strike? So my kind of shorthand name for it in development is like, I call it flying, because that's the theme that Aaron's deck is focusing on when it comes to astral magic. That's not like the definitive theme of astral, but it's kind of the expression of it that I wanted to do for the mono astral deck. Sure. So all these cards are like, if Aaron's flying, do this. If Aaron's flying, do that. Yeah, like that gameplay alone, just from the dice power, I think is so rich. So that's the main thing I want to explore. As for like what the benefits that come from doing flying and stuff, we can see things like dice lowering. Spin down effects are nice and disruptive for kind of that tempo game plan. And we don't really have a lot of it outside of Illusion, which has it innately with the dice power. But Illusion's also good at spinning up and spinning down dice a little bit. Sympathy is pretty good at both of those too. So I like having just a splash of spin down in Astral's Color Pie for kind of that tempo disruption angle, but not really so much for like a full like spin down win condition, the way like Illusion can go all in with it and kind of make that a core part of their thing. So Astral borrows a couple things here and there. They also mess around with card knowledge, where it's like, okay, I can draw 2 cards, put one back on top of my deck, so I can look at my opponent's cards, little things like that, to kind of symbolize like the gaining of knowledge is another area that Astral can go.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it's sort of hard to judge the cards because Artifice is so unique in that it's a machination. Like the whole deck, all the synergies have to work. So it's not like some cards when we're evaluating, Fork Lightning. That's just good. Like we know from playing, it's like this is just good value for 1 die, 2 damage, boom. But all of a sudden it's like, okay, if I charge up this unit and then I have to wait and I have to time things and I have to move things around, what am I doing in those off-tempo time periods? I think that's very exciting, and I like that. Yeah. I think Kobe said it in the video. Everybody, old players and new players, are all starting on a fresh page, trying to figure these things out and exploring this new type, which is really cool, rather than just sort of optimizing and knowing what's good based off of other cards and being able to measure them against other cards.
Yeah, I'm going to be excited to see if people have any preferences for one pre-con or the other over them. And another awesome thing about this starter set in particular is, with releasing 2 player decks at the same time that are meant to be played against each other.
Yeah.
That was a really big kind of just influence on what types of cards do I want to design, what types of stat lines should we be working with. So these decks really feel like they can, just go back and forth against each other. So there's a lot of very intentional choices surrounding that. And, I can leave that for players to discover through their gameplay, but just like every reaction spell is like meant to counter such and such situation. And, this unit's stat line matches up effectively against here, but if it's flying, then they got to get an extra +1, but here comes their +2, and then so it's all like really, trying to make that pre-con matchup as robust of an experience as possible. And I have so much fun playing those pre-con decks. I think it is just like some of the best Ashes out there, honestly. Having just a very intentionally curated pre-con matchup with all the cards feeling really relevant to their game plan. It it really gives me that feeling of like, oh, this is what made me fall in love with Ashes the first time again. So I really hope people try out those pre-con games against each other, and yeah,
Did
it's a great time.
do you feel like that some of that experience has come from your design work with Summoner Wars, which I haven't played, but my understanding is that it's so much more revolved around the pre-con experience compared to Ashes?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know exactly why like each game has kind of gone the way it has with regards to pre-constructed versus constructed play, but it's really awesome to be able to have a pre-constructed game, and you don't have to do all that homework of building a deck and preparing for all your different matchups. Like there's just like a nice element of trust to be able to be given something, being told this is going to work and this is going to be fun, and this
Yeah.
person plays like this, and you're like, oh, that sounds cool, give me that one. Like as far as demoing the game goes, trying it out, like I really have grown in my respect for what the pre-con experience offers. And you can see that with how I designed the campaign idea for Red Rains as well. You just hear so many people play the game this way already that really ought to be honored and supported properly.
I'm very excited. Which okay, so that ties perfectly into. I'll try and keep this as a speed round of questions. Most of them are yes and nos. An easy hit. What is you asked? You're interested to see what other people a favorite is, but what's your favorite between the two new Phoenixborn?
Artifice,
All
Issa
right.
is so fun, dude.
All right. Um, these are going to be sort of all scattered because some of them are from the community and some of them are ones I thought of. Can there please be an AshCon this year on Ash Techie, whether it's for Sympathy or for Time?
Yes, I have to do that. It's it has been way too crazy for me to put in the overtime that is necessary to facilitate an AshCon right now, but or not right now, but in the past. It's been it's been tough to find the time to do that, but it is something I would like to get back to. I think it's really fun, especially around this time where there is such a spotlight on Ashes. That would be potentially really fun for people to start playing the game in anticipation of getting their Kickstarter goodies. So yeah,
For sure, it always brings the
you can see it.
numbers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Will alt arts ever be available for print on demand or print and play?
This I don't know for sure yet. We've been talking about different kind of unlocks, or yeah, do we put this on the database or whatnot? It's a TBD right now, but it's okay if you don't have everything. Just remember, it will all be gone. You will be gone one day.
Very
Don't
very
fall victim to
philosophical.
FOMO. Don't fall victim to FOMO. Just enjoy what you have.
Transparent dice, sleeves, dividers, playmats, especially that Sympathy from the deep or under the deep. You know, that's one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite RPGs. Are we gonna get any of that on sale on the Plaid Hat Game Store? Because people are just craving over all the extras.
Yes. Well, not yes to the question. I don't know yet. I think these are all good things that we should offer, and we're talking about them. We're filing away. Yeah, all we see all the comments. There's been so many like playmats, playmats, playmats. Are you doing playmats? And we just have to take things one step at a time and make sure we're nailing the main stuff that we got to get done, and any of the fun stuff that we can add into the mix. We certainly want to do so. We'll see
Right.
what we can do. I am really pumped about the dividers for the big box, though. Uh, I've put in a little bit of thought on what are all the different ways people can use or like sort their collection, and can we make one divider set accommodate all of those? So the dividers are going to have, there's going to be one for each pre-con deck, and it's going to have their deck list and their dice types on them. So you can, if you trip down the stairs and your box explodes, you can put your collection back together.
I've seen the big box video. That thing is not opening under
Yeah, yeah,
any accident.
yeah. You might injure yourself if more than the
Yeah.
box if you fall.
Um,
Um,
is the deck builder going to eventually get likes or upvotes?
Ooh, great question. I think that would be fun. I'm in favor of it.
All
I'll
right.
pass it along to Joe and let him know just how requested of a feature it has been. It's basically the dominant meme of the Discord.
Um, in terms of organized play, is there any plan to expand tournaments beyond just Gen Con? Is there going to be any more organized play kits? Anything along those lines? Like, what are we looking for even for this year?
I'm not sure yet. You know, our official tournaments are kind of limited by like what conventions we can attend and staff. We've done some tournaments at non-Gen Con events before, and the turnouts have been really low. So we're like, I'm not sure if this is working. But you know, given the success of the Kickstarter, this could be a great new opportunity to try and get some more events out there. And I have no idea if we'll have Ascendancy out for Gen Con or not. That's like my perfect dream come true, but it's just a dream.
That's a tight
Uh,
timeline, but
it's
it's exciting.
incredibly tight, so you
Yeah.
know, don't expect that. But I think it would be really fun if that happened. And I thought about even doing a secondary event, not just like the main constructed tournament, but also doing like a pre-con bash of just the starter
Oh, that
decks.
would be great.
You know, I think that would be a great, just like, let's play some Ashes together. You can meet some people, try out the new stuff, and that would be a really fun day, I think.
Yeah, we've done something similar to that on Ash Techie. There was both a pre-con battle or tournament, and then there was one where Dijon, the developer of Ash Techie, he came up with like, if you take the Red Rains rules, so
Mhm.
you're allowed to basically upgrade a deck as if you
Oh,
were
cool.
level 3 of the campaign. And then we played a tournament there. So it was like a step up above pre-con, but everyone knew
Yeah.
the rules, so that was a lot of fun too.
I love alternative format stuff like that. I think there's so much more you can do with expandable card games, especially ones with really big card pools, as just getting extra value and joy out of your card games. Like my hobby outside of work for the past year or so has been playing alternative formats of Pokemon cards.
Okay.
And like that is so fun. Like it's a card game I have not really played before, but there's like a gym leader challenge format where you have to build a monotype deck and singleton as well. So it's like the commander of Pokemon. But so I got into that for a little bit, but then I started building cubes to do cube drafting, and like that is so much fun to curate your own card pool. And drafting is just inherently fun, I think, to open up fake packs and try and build your dream decks. So I even have been floating around a rule set for like an Ashes cube draft just because of like how inspired I've been with that project. It's awesome because you know there's some restrictions that come with trying to play a game in only the open constructed format. There's like
Yeah.
certain meta threats you have to be aware of, a certain level of efficiency that you need to hit, and as a result, some really fun ideas and cards just have to get left in the binder because constructed is about optimizing your deck and your strategy. So with that comes some losses. So I really encourage people to play the game in alternative ways, limited deck building, limited formats, draft. It's also fun. So I as soon as I get a little bit of time to breathe, I want to try out my idea for a new Ashes draft rule set because I think it could be my favorite way to play the game going forward if that works out as well as I think it could.
That's exciting. Yeah, I'm a big fan of limited formats, especially given the new influx of new players. I think that's going to be
Mhm.
important. It's something that we've already started discussing. Is like how can we make the casual format easier, both for people
Mhm.
who are new to the game to get into, but also just it takes away from that stress of like competing against the meta and everything. So very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, three questions left. These are not questions that I wrote. What is your current position on hair bands for men? I think based off
uh,
of, we see you got a nice yellow one right now.
it's back. Yep.
It's
That just
back.
means I need a haircut, I think.
Given that the Dragonborn appear to be entirely a variation of a race of birds, has your love of birds expanded even further than all the previous Ashes? And when can we expect a Stonemeyer Plaid Hat team up for Ashes Span?
I think I may have been possessed by something at some point in my life that has compelled me to make so many bird characters. I don't even feel like I have a say in it anymore.
And lastly, Fernanda is back. Fernanda Suarez, who was the original artist for so many of the Phoenix Born, and really started the great direction that so many people love about Ashes. It's just so appealing. And we've also talked about in the past on our last episode about accessibility and representation. So, how long before we see our first Canadian Phoenix Born, and would Fernanda want me to model for her? That's the big
Ooh,
question.
I was just doing some art direction for a new Dragonborn for her to start. So,
Well,
maybe
there
I
you
gotta
go.
shift my direction real quick.
All right. I think that is all. That I mean, the chat has been just having some fun lately, but I think I managed to sum up everyone's questions. My only
Great.
last thing is, moving forward, what are you most excited about in this next year or two? Are you gonna finally take a break, or are you just gonna keep going on? What is the future of Ashes? What are you most excited for?
I'm just really excited for people to get this starter set in their hands and whatever convention comes around that is after people have had some time to try it out, like I just want to talk to some people about it and hear their experience. That conventions are always so invigorating for me as a designer to get some direct feedback from people that I've never spoken to before, or it's been a really long time, and just hearing some of that reception is really great because it's tough when you're just chipping away at the design over and over again, and play testing. There's always we got to work on this, we got to make this better, it's got to be this, but to enjoy just some straight up joy of people loving the game is always really great to hear. So yeah, Ashes has been always a community focused thing for me, so I love hearing from the community of people who love the game.
Well, I think everyone, if it hasn't been apparent from the whatever it is 1,700 pledges and everyone in the various discords and comments, um, I mean, this is a huge success. Uh, I will speak on behalf of everyone, are super thankful for all the work that you've put in. We like to bemoan and complain every time something is released or every time there's something that's confusing. But at the end of the day, we have all been brought together and continue to be brought together to play this amazing game, which I think is one of the best card games around. And it's very exciting that there's a new era that will hopefully, you know, make the name of Ashes even bigger and bring in new people. And I'm so very thankful, and I'm really happy for you and all your success and the success of your team and everyone who helps you out. So
Thank you so
congratulations.
much. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone listening for supporting the game and enjoying the game. This is It's a dream job, always has been, and I'm just very thankful I get to keep doing this. So thank you so much, and I I hope you have fun. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for giving me what I thought was going to be an hour, the extra half hour. I think there was a lot of
No, no
really
problem.
interesting things to talk about. So
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully there will be more people who watch this whenever they wake up. We have people all over the world in different time zones. So I'm going to sign off in case you have anything else you want to say. Last chance.
I don't think so.
All right. Well,
Very good.
everyone, thank you very much for watching. Join the Kickstarter if you haven't. Write your questions down in the Kickstarter if there's anything that I didn't address. And of course, if you're not janky, you're stanky. Frog up, wolf down. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you very much, Nick. We'll see you.
Thank you. Later.
That was great.